You all are familiar with this by now. Where are you from? Okay, so Western Maryland is now in the lead. The Western Maryland folks, they like their webinars in the afternoon. Thank you. All right, which of the following sectors do you represent? Or yeah, which one of them? Okay, so county and municipal government, it's been sticking there at that upper or lower 80 percentage, and one left. All right, and what is your role? Okay. Thank you very much. So now we're going to, I got a long list of presenters for this one that I need to introduce. This is virtual planning during a pandemic. I have Kathy Maher, Director of Planning and Code Administration, City of Hagerstown, Megan Flick, a planner for the City of Hagerstown, Paul Fulk, Neighborhood Services Manager for the City of Hagerstown, Donnie Harckom, Neighborhood Services Inspector 2 for City of Hagerstown, and Doug Wright, the Chair of the Hagerstown Planning Commission and our own Treasurer, who's you were introduced to earlier.
Okay.
There we go.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is Kathy Maher in the back of the room there on the left. We are reporting from the City of Hagerstown, and we're happy to put on this presentation for you. With me today in the room is our technology committee, which is a mixture of planning and code administration staff, and then remotely to us is Doug Wright, our chairman for our planning commission for many, many years. I'll turn it over at this point to Megan.
Okay, so welcome to virtual planning during a pandemic. Just a little background on our situation. Prior to the pandemic, we actually met in this room. So again, pretty close quarters with staff and planning commission members all around this table. When City Hall closed to the public on March 17th, all of our public meetings were temporarily canceled. But again, we did have development projects moving forward, so we were determined to have planning commission meetings safely to make sure that we weren't delaying any development. So we actually held our first virtual planning commission meeting on April 1st, which was around 2 weeks after we first found out that we would be canceling public meetings. So it was a pretty quick 2-week turnaround, and we only missed one planning commission meeting at the end of March.
Yeah, so I'm Donnie Harckom. It's nice to talk with you all today. I'm gonna go through why we chose Zoom as our platform. So I did go through a couple different platforms and test them out. We went with Zoom, Google Meet, and GoToMeeting. And like Megan said, we only had 2 weeks to come up with a plan, and what felt like a lot longer with all the testing that we did. We got a quick turnaround in picking out Zoom. Me personally, I was familiar with Zoom. I was taking classes at the time, and I was currently using it. Little did I know that it was going to play such a big role in the coming months. But that was good for one thing, but we wanted to make sure that it works for us. And some of those reasons that we chose Zoom was for the ease of use. You know, we're going to be working with you know, a bunch of different people that, you know, have different aspects and different technology
Skill challenges.
skill challenges. Thank you. Yes. So we wanted to make sure that it was easy to use and also user friendly for joining meetings. And some of the specific features that we wanted were to be able to share exhibits. So during the planning meetings, we wanted to make sure that people could share their screen. And we also wanted to live stream on social media platforms like YouTube. And we also wanted to record the meetings so that we could reference back to later. So that's, in a nutshell, how we came up with using Zoom as a platform.
So one of the things that we wanted to go over for everyone is that what technology did we use? We were joking earlier today that we were kind of like the geek squad here, that we kind of had to figure out things for the city of Hagerstown to be able to still have these meetings, but virtually. The first, of course, going any type of virtual meeting, you're going to need a computer or a laptop. We actually had a laptop that wasn't being used. It had been replaced earlier in the year by another laptop. So we had this one just sitting around that it wasn't being used, but honestly, it is not the best laptop in the world. So that doesn't mean that you need to have a new computer, new laptop to do this type of stuff. Actually, the plug on this one can be very tricky. And we always make sure that it has a blue glowing light on the backside of it to make sure we don't lose power. Also, the next thing that you needed was a webcam. So you need to be able to look at things. And we included what we use. So for any of you out there that are considering moving this direction, if you haven't already, or if you're looking to do any type of upgrade. So we used the Logitech webcam here that was about $130. Now, of course, I think that if anyone tried to purchase a webcam back in March, you'll remember that it was weeks out on lead time on those because it took a long time for the cameras to come in. And so we ordered ours when we started it, but we already had a webcam in our office. We can actually proctor exams for the other part of our department. And we had a webcam that worked for us at that time, and we probably could continue to use that one, but we wanted to increase our field of vision. So we went with a 90-degree field of vision. And then also, we also looked at the high definition of the resolution for the camera. The one thing that you want to consider whenever choosing these, yeah, you could always decide, hey, I'm going to go with a 4K or I'm going to do something with higher resolution. That's always fine. But the one thing you have to consider is that how is people being able to download that imagery? Because sometimes people are just going from their cell phones, not from a LAN connection Ethernet line. So you have to take into considerations on how are you able to download the stuff. We also went with the two omnidirectional microphone that's inside of our webcam. And so omnidirectional basically means that it picks up sound from anywhere. You have directional microphones and omnidirectional. The omnidirectional is what we were looking for because you never know when anyone might be speaking from, such as like here today where we're all talking from a table. The microphones can pick it up, and we went with a 2-microphone one, but again, it's still very tiny microphone, tiny webcam. And then also want to make sure that we can actually have it on a tripod and set it so that it's stable. We don't want the camera moving around, and you can actually give a much better viewing audience from that. The one thing you have to consider as well is, especially if you're working from a laptop, is that laptop speakers are not always the loudest. So you want to be able to amplify that sound. So when you're talking with people, that you can hear them clearly and any of message that they have to get back to you. So we included what speakers that we had chosen for that as well. We already had them here in the office, but we bought a second set just so that we were able to have them for this setup. And then I already mentioned the microphones within the webcam, but also the external plug into the laptop. We'll get into that in just a little bit, but also we were able to take microphones in our hybrid model and kind of backfeed them into our laptop so that we're able to have directional microphones in front of the chair members so they're able to present. The one thing to consider as well is that the webcams only come with about a 3-foot cord. So you would have to have a laptop pretty close to it. We were working in situations, we're an old building, this was built in the 1930s, doesn't always have the best connection location points for everything. So you need to have longer cords. we got a 15-foot long USB cord that we could plug into the end of the webcam and then into the back of the computer, so we had more mobility of where we could locate our webcam. And then also we went with a wireless keyboard and mouse. I don't know if you saw when we first turned on, you could see the keyboard and mouse in front of me. Just gives a more professional look. And then also you don't have to be tied to a laptop. A wireless system works several feet away, and it works very well for us. I mean, in our hybrid model that we use now, we're probably 30 to 40 feet away from the laptop using the keyboard, and it works just fine. It gives you that little bit more of a cleaner look, and you're not tied to a certain area. Okay, so now we have test runs. This one we can't stress enough. Doug can always talk more on this one as well, if you wanted to, or later on, because you have to do test runs with your board members. You cannot just decide to go ahead and say, I got a webcam, I have a computer, I'm going to turn this on and just go live. You do need to run test runs with that. And so we set up test runs for the planning commission so that we were able to make sure everyone could join, because you don't want the first time they've ever experienced a virtual meeting platform being that meeting night. Things are always going to go wrong. It's good to have that test run for it. And then also create some manuals. What we had done, Donnie and myself, we were the models in a lot of our manuals here that we had to do so that it could walk people through step by step. Because although you might be able to get someone on the phone while you're trying to do the test run and kind of walk them through it, it's always good to have that manual available for people to be able to join and know how to join on their own when you don't have that tech support right there with them. And also the manual should include on how to set up the room as well, because although myself or Donnie were setting up these rooms for these meetings, we might not always be available, or as we didn't know early on in the pandemic, we could have fallen sick and then not been able to be there for a meeting so the meeting could still happen. So you need to have a manual available for people to be able to still operate, even if you're not there, being able to do it. So explaining where each of the plugs go in the computer, where to set each thing up, where to click when you actually open up the software. You kind of think about it, and Donnie used the analogy good the other day, is that think of like if you had to explain to someone how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It might seem simple to do with a couple steps, but when you actually break it down, it's actually a lot of steps. And the same thing goes for setting up the cameras and the software to get a virtual meeting to happen. There's a lot of steps. Granted, we all can make it look easy when you're watching us, but when you got to do it on your own, that's when everyone starts to stress out a little bit. And then as we had Donnie, he did a lot of visits to board members at their homes if they weren't familiar with it, and explained to everyone, here's the manual, and if they wanted us to help them, Donnie went in their house and actually set everything up for them so that everyone was able to join successfully when we actually did just our test run, let alone from the actual meeting itself.
So as for hosting and chairing a virtual meeting, as you can see in the photo here, this was very early on. This is when we were completely virtual. So we did have staff in this room as we are today, and then we had all of the board members calling in from Zoom. So in that situation, the chair did a virtual roll call where he introduced all the members that were present. He then made sure that each board member was seen and heard, so made sure their microphones were working, they weren't having any issues. You can see one of our board members' finger in one of the photos pointing to unmute himself in that photo. And then also we did roll call voting when all the members were joining virtually, just so that instead of having to have everyone speak at once, each person would individually say aye or cast their vote. And then as for displaying plans, we did have the host enabled screen sharing feature for the entire meeting. So we're always displaying PDF plans, renderings, photos, and navigating through Google Maps. So when we have the virtual setup, we just enable the screen share and we're able to easily navigate around that way. And then this photo here kind of shows more of our hybrid model, which I'll get into, but we did ensure that applicants are given the opportunity to present their full case, whether they were on Zoom or whether they are in person. And then for the general public providing testimony, we wanted to make sure that we didn't have any Zoom bombing scenarios that we kept hearing about in the media at the time. So we essentially set up a staff vetting process where we had an online form, and anyone who wanted to participate would submit the form online, and then one of our staff members would give them a call and basically ensure the legitimacy of their participation. And then we would give them the meeting ID and password to join. Again, though, we had another control in place that when they did join, we had a waiting room environment and then automatic muting upon entry, just so that nobody could come in and start doing anything crazy. And then again, so the evolution of meetings, we did start completely virtual, and then I think that was April 1st, and then around July 8th, we went to this hybrid model, where we had some members in person. As you can see, the board members at the front of the room there, and the staff on the left, and then the applicants on the right. And then again, the same host enabling screen sharing for these meetings. We just have the screens displayed here so the board members can see, and then anyone joining Zoom can see the screen share as well. And the biggest change between the virtual and the hybrid model was essentially we just moved to a bigger space so that we could be safely socially distanced, especially when we started letting applicants come in. Everyone is wearing masks too, as you can see in this photo. And then we also had the individual microphone set up here, as Paul was talking about. So each commission member and each staff member and each applicant has a microphone to speak into. And then we also are prepared to return completely to virtual meetings if it's necessary that we do that at some time here soon.
All right, so the one thing that we start talking about with this is that there's no excuses. And what do we mean by no excuses? There is no excuses now when you have a virtual environment to not have a quorum. Because that could be very frustrating to any applicant when a quorum isn't able to be had to have a hearing so that they can move forward with their project. So now with these virtual meetings, you have the possibility to have a quorum no matter what the situation is. So if a member happens to be absent or they're traveling, they can call in, because with Zoom, you can call in solely just by phone and listen along to the meeting if the applicant or if the board member had already been viewed the information, knew that what was going to be discussed, could hear the details, and could ask questions for clarifications in case they were driving along, just to be able to join. One of our board members just last week was actually in New York for business and was able to join virtually from New York so that we could still have a quorum. They were able to participate and everything was able to move forward. We had 2 board members that were virtually and the rest were in the city hall. So it worked out great by being able to still have people here for that. And, but you need to plan these types of situations as well. We had it earlier on that we were doing the hybrid model, and a couple board members said that they couldn't be there, but we had enough that were coming in person. So we were like, all right, great. Then we have enough. We don't have to worry about it. And some had actually offered, could actually join virtually if you need a quorum. We're like, no, we have enough for a quorum. We'll be fine. And then, by golly, one person wasn't able to show that night. So then we didn't have a quorum and we had to cancel that meeting. So it is a way that you want to make sure that you have everything planned appropriately in case you don't have enough for a quorum and someone's able to be on call. Then it also goes on the reverse too for applicants. The one thing that we were always thinking about is that, we just tell the applicants that they have to be here for a meeting and people show up, and sometimes they can be coming from pretty far away and they're coming for a meeting and then they're either, driving back late at night or catching a red eye somewhere, something along those lines. Now, with having these options for virtually joining a meeting, they don't have to have any travel expense and they can attend a meeting right from their office or from their home, which we've had people do. That I think we had Indiana was where we had the one coming, calling in from. And we've had some that even been local engineers that have just joined through virtually as well. So it's just a way to make things safer and easier for everyone as well. And you can also bring in more experts for these types of situations. So if you need to bring in that engineer, so you might have your developer from Indiana, you have an engineer from Georgia, or whatever the scenario may be, you can bring them in, and not everyone's having to fly to a location just for a particular question. I think we can all recall the times that maybe had an expert come in for a hearing and and they're there in the audience, and it's like, well, I have so-and-so here that's able to testify to this if you have any questions, and we never have any questions for that particular applicant or that specialist that came in. What a waste of time for that specialist. So there's a way that you can actually join virtually, and then it's not taking up much of their time just solely for that meeting. Also, so I'm not going to sit here and say that things have never gone wrong. Things go wrong. That just happens. So, you know, we try to take steps to make sure that those types of things don't happen. One way is that we've done a preventative way is by adding a co-host. And a co-host can be very simple. I've had it where I'm doing it from my cell phone, where Megan may be leading the meeting in the office here, and then I'm just a co-host from my phone, and I'm able to admit people and do all that type of stuff. That's one of those added features with Zoom, that I'm able to do those types of things. So Megan, if she's talking or presenting or having to navigate some sort of documentation that people want to display on the screen, I can still admit people in from my phone and being able to help her and not actually have to be in that room. Also, it helps if any technical issues come up as well, that you just might have something happen. It helps if having that second person just as a co-host. Also, having backup plans, that is also always crucial to everything. Microphones that you can have, that can be a situation that can just create havoc, which we'll show you a clip here in a second of when your microphones just might not work. But also you have your microphones that could cut out, or we've had them where they just weren't working. Like I mentioned earlier, we are backfeeding into our computer. Like I said, this computer is old, that it should have been destroyed, but we didn't give it to our IT department, so we kept it. And now it's basically our Zoom laptop that we use for everything. But we're able to backfeed all of our microphones and our council chambers into this computer just through the microphone port. There's ways to do certain things, and basically we're doing that by using the hearing loop system that you use a lot of times now to help anyone that's deaf or hearing impaired, that you can assist them by having this hearing loop. We're able to use that hearing loop system and backfeed it into the computer. Works very well, but does it cut out occasionally? It most certainly does, and Doug can certainly attest to that as well. Then we have issues with speakers. So at times you might have your speakers hooked up and you're trying to amplify the sound. Now granted, when like Megan showed the picture of when we're in our hybrid model, and you can see it's a big open room and things do kind of echo a little bit in that room. We were able to use, because the one night when we plugged up the speakers were not working in the computer. We couldn't figure out why. Megan had already loaded up all the exhibits, and we're like, well, the only option is to reboot, but it was time to start the meeting. So we just had to abandon that. We went with just the speakerphones, or the speakers and the laptop. And I remember after the meeting, Doug had mentioned, he goes, the speakers were a little soft. Could you turn them up a little bit? And I'm thinking, yeah, that was because we had to go through the laptop speakers and rather not the actual speakers to amplify themselves. But that's our backup plan. The laptop speakers did work just because of where the laptop was placed in the room. One of the other ones was there was a not funny one, but kind of funny, I guess you could say, is when you're not able to stream live. So I think you've had stuff earlier about the Open Meetings Act and things about being able to be public when you're having your meetings. Our goal was going live. We wanted to be able to allow anyone to be able to view the software. And we went with YouTube rather than Facebook. Zoom gives you the option of going with Facebook or YouTube to stream live. Facebook, though, requires a login, username, and password, whereas YouTube, you can go on and watch any videos and not need a username and password. So we went with YouTube as being our live streaming service, which works out well, except for one night when Megan was trying to click on it to go live, and it just didn't work. The button was not turning red for whatever reason. It just didn't work that night. And we had to Google real quick on how to solve this one. And there is a way, there's an auto-generated key and also the URL that you need to copy and paste into YouTube, or you take them from YouTube live stream, copy and paste them into Zoom, and it works just fine. But we had to work through that situation that night. And believe me, it was very stressful for the 5 minutes that it was. but it was stressful. It felt like 5 hours rather than 5 minutes during that time period, but we figured it out. And it was one of those things that now we know, but it was a when something went wrong. I'm gonna turn it over to Donnie for some of these unvariables.
Yeah, so there's so many variables that go into play when doing any virtual meeting. One thing I want to stress is to not get frustrated with it. You could have the top of the line computer, top of the line webcam, top of the line microphone, but that doesn't mean the people on the other end have that same equipment. Their internet might not be as good as yours, and you just cannot control those variables on the other end. So the biggest thing I can tell you is to plan as much as possible. And talking to a bunch of planning folks, I think y'all got that under control. So plan, that's what I got.
And then just to finish this off, so one of our biggest things is that when we would have issues like this, like Paul said, he would be co-hosting and I would be at the meeting, whether I was texting him help or whatever it was. One of the great things about Zoom that we mentioned is that we do have all of our meetings recorded. So a lot of the times, if there was an issue at the meeting that night, the next morning, Paul and Donnie will take a look at the recorded video and just kind of see where the issue was. They can either confirm what I saw and say, yes, that was in the recording, or this is at what time the audio cut out, or things like that. So we're able to quickly solve them. I mean, identify the issue first and then quickly solve them before the next meeting. So we do have a little blooper video here of when things go wrong, because it has happened. We're gonna go ahead and play that now.
What does that say?
Yes or no, move to hearings.
High tech.
Yay, Zoom.
Can I chime in for a little bit here? Are you done, Megan?
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
Yep.
All right, I just want to, the staff has been fantastic on this, and I really applaud them for pulling all this together and even getting better at it. As you heard, we first started out totally virtual. Then we went to this hybrid, which I think even added to problems because of a different room. Some of us were live, some are on the screen. Some of the things that I've had to adapt as chairman that I thought I would share too. I used to always run our meetings easily. I mean, I never really got involved in a lot of formalities until we got to voting. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of dynamic conversation going on between the members. You can't do that anymore. Now we have to be very organized and very focused. Call in a roll call at the beginning of every meeting. Being sure that all the votes are recorded. Although I must admit, a lot of times I do that by just asking if anybody's opposed and then recording those. So obviously everybody else is in favor, and I announce a lot of times the votes are unanimous. Some of the, I start off the meeting by identifying, as I said, everybody in the room. I work on recording who makes being sure that we get the maker of the motion, the maker of the second identified, as well as controlling the vote much more closely than if we all sat in a room in the old days and we all knew what happened. Those test runs were very important. We still, every once in a while, have to tell somebody how to turn on their mic. If you do Zoom at all, you recognize that. In this scenario, it's even more crucial because we're going live at a certain hour. I mean, if we're not ready yet, someone's struggling getting their mic on, it wasn't a problem for regular Zoom meetings. This is different. We're going live. We're trying to be ready to go at 7 o'clock or 4 o'clock, depending on when we meet. That puts more pressure on the staff also, because again, you heard some of the problems, but they've really handled it well. I want to back up one other earlier. Something I also recommend for everybody to consider is right at the very beginning, the staff on their own initiative proposed to revise bylaws. We have our own bylaws. Some people call them procedures for the planning commission. And we did that. And that was the first vote we took at that virtual meeting, is to approve those bylaws. If you're ever interested in seeing what we did, I'm sure you can call or text the city staff or myself, and we can provide that if needed. I think that's important to do so that you are covered in how you do things. I want to also refer back to some of the open meetings presentation this morning, particularly slide 14. There's some good ideas there about how to conduct that meeting, and I'll just refer you to those instead of rereading them. So those are my comments. It changes things, but it hasn't. In some cases, it's opened up opportunities, as Paul was saying, because now we have a greater chance of having a quorum and a greater chance of being able to move things forward instead of waiting 2 more weeks for another chance to approve something or to get things moving. So again, I thank the staff and I thank you all for listening. Are there any questions to any of us?
I think Megan has a plug here real quick.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, if you guys want to follow us on social media, we're PCAT Hagerstown on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. If you just search that, it'll come right up, but that's kind of where we post not only what's going on with development, but you guys can keep updated on our virtual meeting progress if you so wish. And then our contact phone and email is on there as well. Yeah, does anyone have any questions?
I have 2 questions here. Now we just got a third one, a couple more. Well, the first one I had is, and you talked about opening up new opportunities. Are you all thinking about or planning for some kind of hybrid system when we are beyond the worst point? Who knows when we'll be beyond the worst parts of the pandemic? But are you thinking about that? You know, what are your thoughts on some kind of hybrid system?
We kind of feel like we're running on a hybrid right now, where we kind of have people away from City Hall when we're hosting a meeting, and then we're also in person. But as far as just moving forward, we said there's no going back now. So we are always going to be streaming those meetings, even if all of the board members are present inside the building for the meeting, that all the applicants are there, anyone for or against, or however they want to speak at some sort of hearing, then it's all going to be still streamed and still live and everything along those lines. It'll just be a camera in the background, just a silent observer.
And I do want to thank you for the levity with that video. That was fun. After being on a GoToWebinar all day long, we needed that. I do have another question here, similar in that vein, but wondering whether you've seen public participation actually increase, given that making it to in-person public hearings sometimes poses scheduling or transportation problems for folks.
I'll say public participation hasn't increased, but public, like as far as speaking at a meeting, but as far as the number of views and people watching it on YouTube, that certainly has been more than what would you have in the audience at any of the planning commission meetings. So I think that's.
Yeah, just to build on that, I think initially, you know, we obviously planning commission meetings were open to the public. We wouldn't necessarily have members from the public just showing up, you know, to observe or for anything else. I feel like that now has changed. I think people who maybe were interested in a planning commission meeting, maybe they didn't have a specific agenda item or wanted to participate, but maybe they were curious about how it would go. I feel like those people might be viewing on YouTube, or if they're not viewing live, they might be viewing our videos after the fact, because we do post them all to our YouTube page after they are finished recording. So I think in that way it increases, I guess, the accessibility of planning commission meetings.
Because we meet downtown usually in the evening, so that may deter some suburbanites. But with this capability, they can watch, and we always leave the record open for 10 days, so they can then send in emails afterwards or call us and say, hey, I really hate what you're doing. So it definitely, we never usually get much of a crowd for our hearings unless it's something extremely, extremely controversial.
Of course, we just finished an election too, so there might have been some of that going on. People trying to get up to date on what is this planning commission, particularly those running for office. But that's great. We have more people watching. Maybe there'll be future members.
We got 3 new questions just came in. Do you supply your board members with computers? One of our issues is that not everyone has a computer, smartphone, or internet service.
So the one thing with Zoom is that you are able to join by phone only. So they do not need to actually see the material. They have to pack it ahead of time. Now that always hurts if you have any type of documents that are being distributed in-house while you're there at the meeting. And I know that it wasn't for a planning commission one, but it was for a BZA one that we had one presented there, and we had a person joining virtually. And so I'm running real quick to scan it and email it real quick to the board members so they're able to actually see what's in front of them. But as you know, I'm sure Doug would love it if the city provided him with a computer. But no, we do not provide anyone with a computer or anything along those lines for smartphones. Most people, though, surprisingly,
Just mayor and council.
Yeah, just mayor and council. And surprisingly, when we had even some of our older board members, they still had a smartphone that they could use for it. But you can join by a phone if need be. It just might be a little more difficult for Doug being a chairman or an applicant trying to explain what they're presenting if it wasn't already provided in a packet.
And that was one of the reasons we chose Zoom, is that people could join from a phone or from a landline, just in case they didn't have internet access or a smartphone or a computer.
And we did at our very first public hearing, which was a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, had a gentleman that did call in, was participating by phone. And that's when we discovered a problem, which fortunately Zoom has now corrected, is it was a long distance call for that gentleman. And he had to wait a while for his case. And so he got an unexpected phone bill, which we covered, but fortunately Zoom took care of that.
All right. Next question is, I just got another one in, so it bumps up the question. All right. At your in-person meetings, do you perform any screening procedures before persons are allowed in?
No, we don't. We ask that everybody wears masks, and we stay distance, and that's pretty much what we've been doing.
Yeah, as far as like screening the participant of what they're going to say or what they're there for, we don't do for in person. We did it online because when Zoom started to become popular and everyone's like, you know, why are you going with Zoom? And there's Zoom bombing is what they were calling it, for people to break into your Zoom meetings and to take hostage of it, stream whatever right on your screen, do whatever the scenarios were. We wanted to try to protect the integrity of our meetings by making sure we screen those first. Granted, anyone could still come into the meeting and say or do anything, but you know, a lot of times they're less likely to do that in person than they would be. It was more or less to protect us from having a situation of someone overtaking a meeting virtually.
Plus, by having the waiting room, you can always throw them back in the waiting room.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Next question is, do you get better discussion from the planning commissioners themselves?
I'll go, Doug. Yeah, that's a great question for you.
Yeah. I feel that the discussion is now more organized. People don't talk over other people. I mean, before you would have 2 people on the side sort of discussing the plans while the general discussion was going on, not being mean or anything. They just like to talk about things. But now, knowing that they're on camera and they're being recorded, it's an organized discussion where I'm able to recognize someone to speak and they can have their say, then someone else, we can go back and forth, but it's not people talking over other people, not in a mean sense, but I mean in just a general conversation thing. So I think the discussions actually are are better because they're more organized.
Plus with the social distancing, it's hard to have a secret sidebar conversation.
Yeah.
And then our one last question, then I'm going to let the rest of the MPCA board join us. And this is the person who asked about public participation earlier. Are you able to track participation, keep statistics on the number of views? And do you think eventually the public might start asking more questions? So yeah, are you tracking online participation?
The one thing that Donnie and I do, we run statistics on every single thing that we do, whether or not it's our social media, our YouTube, our virtual meetings, whatever those are. We keep an eye on everything, seeing what our views are and what participation we're getting from those meetings. That's how we kind of know we're getting more of an audience now than what we would before when we were in person. We're able to track the number of views on things, the duration inside the meeting, where did they click out, all that type of stuff. We can see all the statistics.
Great, thank you. All right, I think we were going to unmute the rest of the board members if they could either have, they're all on planning commissions themselves, if they have anything to share or any questions to engage in this conversation.
Hey, this is Danny. First of all, thank you very much for doing this. You know, this was really good. I just had a quick question. I typed it, but I guess wasn't seen. But what are your plans for when this whole COVID is over? Are you still going to do a hybrid? Is that your plan, maybe?
Yeah, we're still planning on always having a virtual environment set up for every meeting moving forward. We're not going to go back. So if everyone's in person, we're still going to stream it and still have it available for people to view through YouTube or whatever platform they want to try to join from.
Or for out-of-town applicants to call in via Zoom.
Yeah, the out-of-town applicants have really taken advantage of this. They really appreciate it.
I'm sorry, who was that? So the mayor and council doing this too, and the boards of appeal?
The city is running for the planning department is in charge of course, planning commission, and also the board of zoning appeals, which is still being running virtually, and then also the historic district commission. All of those are being run virtually. We'll typically have some people join in. That's where with our HDC, where I was saying joined by a phone, that was an HDC meeting the one night that the one board member was in Virginia, and he just called in from his phone while traveling back. He didn't make it back to Hagerstown in time, so he just joined by phone to listen along to the meeting and be able to make comments during that meeting because he had already read the packet beforehand. But he was in his phone. That was interesting. We've had DZA, we've had an applicant always join from home for those meetings, and they've been able to participate, and it just makes it an easier environment. Our mayor and council are actually using the GoToMeeting feature, but we stream live on a local channel here in our community for that, and also on YouTube for those. But they're in person now, but they were all virtual early on in the pandemic.
Yeah, I don't think.
But also, and I noticed that you all are socially distant. So are you all making any modifications to your meeting room, so that like, you know, you're not sitting right next to each other or anything like that?
Yeah, when we actually set up our council chambers that our council used, when we showed that hybrid model screen where you kind of see everyone spaced apart from each other, everyone is generally 6 feet away. Donnie, myself, and actually one of the other younger staff members here in our office, we moved all of the desks and picked them up and moved them around to make sure that we could be as distant as possible. Sometimes it's hard to get 6 people up on the platform to be 6 feet away. But we tried our best to make it that way. The applicants are away from it, and that they are able to be distanced from the staff members, and that we're able to just keep distance as best as possible is what we try to do.
I have one more question, and this might be a little esoteric, but are you making any modifications to like the filtering or the HVAC in that room?
That I cannot answer. We probably don't change the filters too often in that area, but There's no modifications.
Yeah, we're no longer meeting in this room, which is where all the historic district commission meetings usually meet, and most of the planning commission meetings. The board of zoning appeals is always in the council chamber, and the mayor and council, of course, are always in the council chamber. So now we're having all of our board meetings in the council chamber because that's a much bigger room, higher ceilings, you can get more distance from each other.
Yeah, when we first started, we were in this room here with just our 4 staff members and everyone else virtually. And then when we had everyone else in person, we switched to a much bigger room so that we could be distanced.
Okay, thank you.
Bill or Roxanne, any questions or insight for Mount Airy?
I'll
Go
just
ahead, Bill.
simply, I'll just simply go ahead and echo the kudos to the Hagerstown team. I think what you've demonstrated and what you continue to have in place is just a very smart and very strategic model. And ultimately, it's going to increase participation and awareness in your community of what y'all are involved in, of the topics and issues that you're considering. It makes you and what you're doing more accessible to your residents. And I think that's a huge advantage for planning commissions. So really appreciate all the effort and all the thinking that you folks are applying to this. And we hope to continue to learn from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We try.
Yeah. I'm the chairperson for Mount Airy, so I really appreciate this. We do ours through Facebook, so I can't monitor the chats coming in and the Facebook stuff. So we have a staff member who monitors Facebook, and then I have one of my commission members monitoring the chat with the Zoom, because I'm real big on the audience, on the public being able to have access and to make comments on what we're discussing. So until I realized that, I was having a really hard time keeping my mind in the game, so to speak, in the meeting, because I was monitoring way too many things. So just an FYI for anybody out there, don't try to monitor the comments coming in, have somebody else do it. And I'm constantly asking because I want to make sure, because there was a lag time in the Facebook comments. So I always stop and ask and make sure we have the comments, because I don't want the public to feel like they're being left out through this virtual process. And I also think we'll continue something virtual, because we had an issue where one of our applicants was not able to be there. And I did not allow a vote to go through because I didn't have comments from the applicant. And I asked that we have the applicant come back. And unfortunately, the applicant was in Ohio and had to fly in. But I couldn't make a decision without these questions being answered, and there was nobody there to answer them. So that type of situation would help, like you said, out of town applicants a lot. So you always get something out of it. I have, and I appreciate you guys doing this. This was awesome.
Thank you.
I also must say that Hagerstown also was sharing their lessons learned way back in April when we were doing the planning directors roundtable.
Yeah.
So you've been at the forefront of this and gracious with your experience and time with throughout the state and many occasions. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Let me see if I have any more questions. No, only that somebody wants to know about the AICP numbers again. So we're going to put those up on the screen as a reminder. I'm going to say a couple things, just housekeeping stuff as reminders, and then I'm going to turn it over to Danny. So let's see, those will be up shortly. Reminder, all of these sessions will have the presentations, PDF versions of the presentations available, and recordings of each session. So those will be available. I think it's the next slide. or a previous slide. Looks like that was the one you put on for break. It's a nice picture.
Yeah.
Well, those are going to be coming up shortly. So for those AICP folks, we're glad you could join us and get some credits here as well. And then we will be sending out the, for those who are interested in the Academy of Excellence credits or the certificate or the Open Meetings Act training, we'll be following up with that as well. There it is. And I will be putting together a survey, quick survey to get some feedback on this. You know, with this, the MPCA does not have as much experience with these virtual meetings as it sounds like the rest of you have, because we weren't required to. But we've done, this is our second one now. This was a very long one. And I also have to, so I give thanks to all the people that submitted sessions and worked with us. I give a lot of credit to the board, but I also want to give credit to staff here at Maryland Department of Planning, my colleagues Sarah Lipkin-Soulars and John Coleman. You've heard his voice a few times today. He has been vital in organizing not just today's meeting, but also the dry runs we had and keeping this moving along. So thank you to everyone involved. But I do want to turn it over to Danny right now.
Okay. Alrighty. This was extremely successful. We were, you know, we thought things would be okay. I guess you need to see me. And but this turned out really, really well. I'm so happy that we were able to do this. We were able to still have our annual conference. It is great to still network, so I'm looking forward to our networking opportunities next year when we figure this all out. But this is great that we were able to still hold our 37th annual MPCA conference. I want to thank all of the participants. This is just fabulous. We couldn't have done it without you. We had some great topics, but just like I really, really think, you know, the partnership is amazing that we have with the Department of Planning. Joe Griffith is an amazing dynamo. He just helps us. We could not do this without Joe. So Joe, thank you so much for this. Sarah is an invaluable resource to us. Sarah Lipkin-Soulars, thank you so much for all of your help. And John, with your technical expertise, we were able to pull this off without a hitch. We had minimal, no issues, just a little thing here or there, but everything just went great. And I'm so thankful to you for helping us make sure that this happened. And to the executive board, Doug, Roxanne, Bill, this was excellent. It's been an honor and a real pleasure to work with you all. I'm looking forward to even more exciting things for us in 2021. And I would like to open the floor to see if you all have anything to say. We have a few minutes before it's 4 o'clock. So if any of this executive board wants to say something, you know, please just take a minute to you know, offer something.
Danny, I'll go ahead and put out a very obvious appeal. As much as the board members really enjoys what we're involved in, and
Yes,
the satisfaction being involved in building this organization, we could use some additional folks on the board. We could use some additional assistance. We have a lot of talented, smart local planners out there, and quite frankly, you could enrich, you know, the quality of our consideration and our discussions on various topics. It would be a win-win, I think, for you and for us. So do give some thought at some point to consider joining the board and also sharing that opportunity with other members of your commission and board.
yes. Great, excellent point. Roxanne?
Yes, hello. Yes, kind of the same thing. I've learned a lot since I've been a member. of the board and the MPCA when I started going to the conferences before I was a board member. And I want to be able to educate those newer members and those members too that feel that there's not enough information or education for a citizen planner, which is what I was finding when I first started in this planning business. So I want to see us continue the way we are with education. I think it's very important for all the other planners. You actually have my email because I sent you the email about our special meeting. Don't forget about that. But if anybody has any questions, just please, you send me an email. I'll be happy to answer you.
Sure, sure. Hey, Doug.
All I'm gonna say is, if you all like what you see, it can't go on with just us. We need your help.
Yes,
You're the future. You need to come to the table and help us out and be the future.
absolutely, absolutely. All right, thank you to exec people. Hey, Joe, I wanted to give you an opportunity and Sarah to say something if you wanted, since we have just a few minutes left. You can also talk about the availability of this and other recorded sessions at the Maryland Planning website.
Yes, everything will be available. It'll take us a little time to do some post-production, at least of the videos, because the recording, right now it's one long recording, so we need to break it up into more manageable sizes, but it will all be available. I'll be brief because you've heard enough of my voice today. I thoroughly enjoy working with the MPCA. You know, from the time when we did the outreach project way back in 2017 into 2018. That was extremely rewarding to go around the state and talk with planning commissioners from all over Maryland. And I agree. We're very happy with the organization's very happy with where it is right now, but also has big aspirations and knows that a lot more could be done, and a lot more expertise and knowledge is out there. So if we can tap into that, get some more voices at the table, because it's, as I always say about the MPCA board, is that you know, these are folks that have full-time. Oh, I guess I'll share my camera. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
These are folks that have full-time jobs. They're already volunteering on a local planning commission, giving back to the community, and then they're volunteering again on the MPCA board. And I mean, I'm just overwhelmingly impressed with that. But that just gives you an idea that how spread thin, you know, we can be. So as mentioned, look at the bylaws, because one of the things that Danny said that we really tried to clarify is we're gonna, you know, right now we have a board and officers, but we're also clarify the role of an executive committee.
Yes.
So that's a different body as well that we want to enhance and also to provide support. So,
Right.
But really enjoy working with you all. I don't know, Sarah, if you have anything to say, feel free. Not to put you on the spot, but Danny already did, so.
Yeah, but she's our silent partner. She loves to stay in the shadows, but she does a lot of work. So Sarah, I know you don't want to get on camera, but thank you so much for your assistance throughout the year. You're a tremendous resource to us, and we really appreciate your hard work. Thank you so much. You've been running, everybody. She's been running the presentation today, so that's been extremely valuable to us. And we really couldn't have done this without her. So Sarah, I know you don't want to get on camera, but thanks a lot. So I guess that's it. You know, we're right on time. It's actually 3:58. We got 2 minutes to spare. So I'm gonna give you all 2 minutes back to your day. And I guess we're adjourned. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You're
Have a
welcome.
safe
You're welcome. Thanks.